morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Luxury Listings. We'll call this Luxury Listings 101. The intent today is to actually prep you for going into luxury listings. What material should you have? What's the story that you should be telling? And then talk also just from the luxury marketing on the bigger picture to make sure everybody's understanding all the components. There's a lot of stuff to it, right? But I want to make sure when you have these opportunities that you're taking full advantage of all the things that the company has to offer, because it is one of our biggest advantages with this transition to Berkshire Hathaway that we've picked up. Sound like a good plan?
Yes.
Okay. So let me start with a couple of basics. First, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and has heard the same things. From the luxury piece, right? There's a couple of different components or things that you have to think about. One, we have luxury certified designated agents in the company. Okay, so there's luxury certified agent at the Berkshire Hathaway level. That there's a qualification to that. We keep an eye on that for most of you. It's 3 properties in that top 10% of the market, or over $1.2 million when we first transitioned in. And then there's a couple other points that you have to actually get the designation. And then there's requirements each year to maintain it. Okay, so that's as an agent. That's using the business cards, using that designation for yourself. That comes from that. Then we have luxury properties at Berkshire Hathaway. Luxury property is defined as the top 10% of any market. That's maintained in the company at the zip code level. It's like if you look at Newton, in fact, I printed out the Newton one. It ranges anywhere from, I think it was $1.2 million is the lowest to 2.2, depending on what section or zip code of Newton you're in. That gives you the cutoff for that luxury. Yes.
How often does that change? Is that a yearly thing, or do we have to keep checking that regularly?
So it's updated by corporate for us, so that's why we don't publish that list. You ask when you have a property coming in.
Oh, so it's constantly changing.
I don't know if it's quarterly yet. I suspect he's probably doing it quarterly with the market reports.
Okay.
But again, that's maintained at our level so that you don't have to worry about you working with old data.
Is any property in any market $1 million and over?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
So that's why I want to be clear sort of with how, right, so in Newton, you might qualify. So the last piece is the tiered marketing program here in Commonwealth, right? So that's the Sapphire, Ruby, Diamond tiered marketing program. And that starts, it's $1 million to $1.5 million is Sapphire, $1.5 million to $2.5 million is Ruby, $2.5 million and up is Diamond. So does that make sense? So you might have a tiered marketing qualifier that's not a luxury property, okay? Or you might have a luxury property, a lot of the times the luxury properties fall somewhere in there. But again, that depends on the zip code. Because there are a lot of zip codes that are below that $1 million mark. They would qualify for luxury, but they're not going to qualify for the tiered marketing program. That makes sense, Timothy?
Yeah, so once it's a luxury listed, what's different?
Well, we're going to go through all the components of what you get. So that's the piece of, but in terms of the sign and the definition of that luxury property, that needs to be top 10%. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I know it's a little tough because there's so many different pieces to it. That's why I just want to sort of get that out of the way first and make sure we understand. Now, the other thing before we dive into this more is any property where you have an opportunity to go out and do a listing presentation that you feel is going to qualify for the luxury, or you want to check that out, you check with Nicole, you let us know that you have that appointment coming. And the reason you do that is because we can then actually not only just give you the materials to go in with, the extra folder, the luxury folders that I'm going to talk about today, but we can actually reach out to the brand manager. Sometimes if you give me not a fancy shot, but a front shot of the house so we know whether or not it's going to qualify, we can actually potentially get you the schedule of when that might make the magazine cuts so you can utilize that within your presentation. And that can be a big piece. That can be a real differentiator for someone who's on the fence of, well, I might not sign this week, but by the way, if we get professional photos done and get you in by the cutoff of October 15th, I can make the Boston Magazine. But we can't make that commitment without running that by the brand manager. Okay, so any listings that you're doing presentations for that you have those opportunities, touch base with me, touch base with Nicole, make sure we know the property. Again, try to get that basic front photo just so we see if it qualifies, because that's usually what we send. We understand they're not professional, but that's what we send to the brand manager and say, hey, look, would you have space in the upcoming Boston? And if it applies, some of the other magazines we're going to talk about. Okay? That makes sense? Okay. Now, let's start with some of you got the email, some of you did not because you weren't on the sign-in list. What would you bring before, just walking in today, and I asked you to kind of think about this, and don't look at the materials I just gave you, because that's not even actually, that's just some added collateral pieces, right? What would you bring if you had an opportunity to go into a listing presentation?
So the toolkit has the whole listing presentation that you can go through and pick out as much of the content that you want. So that's the booklet that you can print over here.
Yep.
And then I think you have a box or something
Okay.
of some sort.
So,
And other materials.
okay, so toolkit CMA,
Mhm.
for sure, the place to start. Really, the only place, in my opinion, you should ever be doing a CMA. I'm not a fan of the MLS PIN CMA. I don't think that looks very professional. It doesn't have all the branding in it. I know some of the agents will go back to that, but the toolkit CMA has the nice presentation piece. It's all branded to you. It's branded to the company. You can pick the pieces that you want to include or not include based on the property. Like if these sellers are saying to you, well, we're very concerned about our international exposure in this market, right? There's a lot of pieces in there that address that. Now, a lot of people don't know because it's kind of slid in not that recently, kind of recently. There's a luxury presentation now in Toolkit CMA. So for luxury properties, you should be using the luxury presentation that's in Toolkit CMA. It looks nice. It's a nice, frame, pictures, but that's, again, using the right materials for what you're going in for is important. Okay? We do have all the offices have the nice covers and the heat binding system. This is the very high end. So in this particular, it will depend on your office and your market, but in this market, I think anything we're looking at like 2 million up or 2.5 million up, we would look at the hardcover presentation tablets that we keep as well. Again, that's something you have to talk to us about because these are $75 a piece. So we'll give it to you, but it's kind of under lock and key to make sure that we're not, doing the Lowell condo. I'll go extreme.
Something nice and low.
I'll go extreme. Could be a penthouse. Still might not be luxury though, right? So again, but you want to go in armed, and we have the materials. We have the paper. I want to stress the importance of using all the tools that you have at your fingertips here, and that's the nice, the nice regular covers, and these go in again to the high end. So that's Toolkit CMA, right? That's a great place to start. Do your analysis. Use the luxury piece for the luxury one, right? What else? Maura.
AdWorks.
AdWorks. Yep. So, well,
I don't know if that's necessarily luxury, but
not necessarily luxury, but it's a differentiator, right?
It is a differentiator, and so I print out one that shows what it gives to the client.
Yep.
And it shows how many people. So I have an example if people don't have the same one.
So it shows the analytics of the exposure, yeah.
So, like that, because that actually, I think, got me a listing once.
Yep. And I've got the generic Commonwealth piece on AdWorks up here for you that was part of the package for you to grab. Yeah, AdWorks is very strong and it's a real differentiator in the market. What else?
I know for me, I did the same thing for AdWorks. I have that printed. I have this one printed out too.
Yep.
Because I just love
Fortune's
this one.
10
It's just
most
a-
at my
it's
company,
nice,
yeah.
I like that. And I had magazine, brochure Alphabet magazine I got from one of the, I think it was up here or something. I grabbed that to show all of our listings.
This or
Yeah,
no? This.
that, and then there was a more for the whole year for the entire company, not our company, but the entire.
Okay, so, okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the collateral pieces. So this is the consumer piece. This references all the high-end digital market, the high-end magazines and print and the exposure and why they're good. The Wall Street's in here, Unique Homes, DuPont, nonstop. So this is a high-end piece. Again, to me, this is not a cheap piece as well, but this would also be something you might not leave with the client, but keep in your portfolio and or worry about it only on the very high-end piece. Because some of these publications on the low end, they're not getting that kind of exposure, right? Here at Commonwealth, we have the tear sheets for all the ads. So there's plenty of these magazines floating around if you want something for your own personal collection and you do enough luxury, makes sense to keep them. And again, this isn't something we usually leave with a client. It's something to keep in your bag, right, to show them. But you've got Unique Homes, we've got the Prestige, which this one's a nice one. This is a popular one. There's a lot of those floating around. And then we've got the Boston Magazine tear sheets. And those all the tear sheets that have our ads, the Commonwealth ads in it, are in the library that you can download and print, but they're also gonna be in the luxury folders we're gonna give you. So to grab and go based on the tier, okay? So good, so examples of the marketing pieces. What other types of examples might be good?
Just listed cards?
Yeah, so Maura's holding up the postcards in the back and she's talking about the part. So the luxury postcards, right? The luxury postcards and material that's available for them. We have, again, lots of samples here. So some of you don't have your own, Maura might have her own, but a lot of you don't have your own, but we do have samples that are gonna be in those folders that are gonna be available, or that are available for you to grab. That includes, for here, we've got an actual office listing that's generic, doesn't have an agent on it, that we've shown a sample. And then there's some of the, the bigger postcard sample to use. There's a flyer piece. And then there's this piece here, which I like, that shows the true luxury brochures that are sent out to be printed. There's this one, and there's just a standard sort of the white luxury, which this one sort of addresses from here. We've got these samples in the folder for you. Yep.
Paula, so those big one like that, what's that tent sheet that you just showed?
Yep.
What comes with, is it the same, is that like part, because that's not a postcard per se, so.
This is a brochure.
So what?
This is actually this would be a brochure.
Come with a luxury listing, or is it
Yeah,
just
we'll talk about that when we go through
Okay.
the tier. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, but honestly, we've upgraded the printers here and the paper, so we're getting good quality, but these are the send out ones.
Okay.
So we've got both send out depending on what level the property is and what kind of timing we have, because sometimes it's a timing issue.
So those would be for like the open houses, or
This is the brochure you'd have at the property, just like you would potentially have. This is another version of that, right? And again, these are the luxury collection ones. So that, they're designated luxury collection. They look good, don't they? I mean, they really do stand out. So good. What else? And this is a sample of the tear sheet. So the tear sheets have the magazine cover and then the actual ad that we had on the back, and they're printed on good paper. And again, these will be part of the luxury folders. They are part of the luxury folders that are actually already made up here. What else might work or might be important?
I don't know that this is necessarily Berkshire, but for our office, I use the virtual staging a lot. That's different because you're gonna pay for that yourself, but Catherine out of our office will do it. And if you haven't done it before, I'm happy to give you a before and after from what I've done, but I think that's a huge thing, especially in some of those bigger homes.
So the virtual staging too, what's nice and what's important to have in your portfolio is take a look at what she's got back there.
I can find
There's a before and after
Yeah.
that she keeps in her book to show. And I mean, that actually shows, we see it all the time, even on the regular properties, what a difference that can make. And it has made a difference in sales. So that's virtual staging. If you have an empty house, you have something that's not, you just did it with your luxury properties, right? So you've got some samples too. That's an effective way when a seller doesn't want to spring for the full staging, doesn't want to put that kind of budget out there, and it doesn't make sense for you to spend $5,000 to stage it. That's a less expensive way to actually make a bigger impact on the marketing. In Kelly's case, I use Kelly's example because it's a good one. She's got two listings from the same builder. One's an antique, like a luxury antique, and one's a luxury new build. And it's hard with the luxury, the antique especially, to visualize how to live in the space because it's an older home with those smaller rooms, right? And so the staging can make a real big difference when somebody's taking a look at those pictures online with, this has got a lot of space for my family or a lot of entertaining space or whatever that is that's important to them.
How much is the virtual?
I think it's usually $50 a room.
Okay.
Yeah, for Catherine, it's $50 a room depending on what you're doing. Sometimes she cuts your
She's
deal.
very
This one.
nice about stuff though. Like I've said, like I won't like this. Can you she'll fix that? Whatever. But I'm
That's
telling
in your office.
office?
It's in our office. She's actually remote now, but
So
she's
she
still
works
out
out
of
of
this
Barcelona,
office.
Spain, actually.
But I literally had a house that would sell, and she did the outside of the house, changed the color, and I sent it to the guy, and he made the offer that night. Like, people have zero vision. A
Yeah.
lot of people have zero vision.
Please remember that. We think people have vision, people have no
And
vision.
so I put those.
They really don't. They don't have a lot of vision.
I also
it-
bring those.
it's gotten
put 'em-
worse.
I put them at open house too, like not only just on your MLS, but I put them on I hang them on the wall and stuff too. It's hard to mention.
Yeah.
It was, it's kind of hard to pay that if you want to do 4 or 5 rooms, but it's such money well spent.
So that's staging piece, right? You can always do full staging piece, and there's a lot of recommendations within the company as well. And if you need them, let us know, because the brand manager's collecting the list. Not people we necessarily recommend, but people who've used successfully within the company are on that list, okay? Photography is very important when you get at this level. And it's also something that we talk about less and less at the listing presentations, because we make an assumption that everybody knows that there's going to be professional photography. Don't make that assumption. Make it very clear that there will be professional photography. I bring an expert in that's really good at marketing the property, and showing its best side. Carrie Howell's just one of the photographers out of this office that I don't know which property was it yours or Melissa's, the Twilight shoot? Did she do the Twilight shoot? Oh my goodness, those are gorgeous. And when you start looking at the luxury properties, she did that one was a new construction. She did the Twilight shoot at, it really pops. And when somebody's scrolling through pictures online, anything that you can catch people's attention on, especially those first few photos, is going to make them look further into the property, right? That's going to help to drive traffic. So professional photography, but talk about it, address that. Address how you invest in that for them, right? That's part of the investment you make for the listing. What else is available in that kind of arena?
Virtual tour.
Virtual tour. So Matterport is a big one also when you get to the luxury level, because that can run a little bit more money. Carrie does have that equipment now as well. And there's that other gentleman, Cotton Soho, that came in and did it by the square footage. So there's a couple of options there that don't have to be crazy expensive. If you have never looked at a Matterport tour, you should Google online and take a look at them. They're very impressive.
How do you spell that?
Matterport, Matterport, or is it one T?
I thought it was A.
I think it's an A, but it's
What?
MATTA.
What did I say?
ER.
Mattar?
I think it's A.
AR, PORT.
I don't know if it's an R.
Okay.
That might be Boston.
Matta.
Matterport.
I think there was an R in it, but yeah. If you can't find it, let me know. If you Google, you can take a look at that. That's 3D video tours. Those are 3D video tours. So they give you a snapshot of the layout, then they zoom into the rooms, and it actually allows someone to walk through the house.
I know 100 Valley Road in Needham, it's on our listing, but I know they come out for tour.
Yep. Did everybody hear that one?
100 Valley Road in Needham, if you pull that up on MLS, there's a Matterport tour on there.
Again, be prepared with a sample like that to show somebody, not just talk about it, because that especially is extremely impressive. I mean, that is a full-blown, somebody can actually pop into the rooms, click the little buttons, move around, spin around. I mean, you really could buy a house without stepping foot in it. I mean, I know I've done that too, but without a Matterport tour, but
Yeah.
you could actually do it. You could actually do it. And don't discount the power of video, especially in a lot of our markets. We have a lot of folks relocating, moving in from other areas that might be starting to do searches. Again, this is all about getting more interest in the property and driving more traffic. And the higher you go in the luxury market, sometimes the harder that is to drive the traffic in, right? Your showings are going to be lower than a $500,000 house, and part of your job as a listing agent is to drive as many options as possible, as much traffic to that house as possible, so that they can get the proper exposure. Timothy, did you have a question? No.
No, it's a Matter, Matterport.
Okay, I was right. Whoops, I was right for once. Oh my goodness. I was giving in. See how fast I gave in on that one? I didn't know. Matterport, Matterport. Tours. What else?
Floor plans.
Floor plans are a big piece. The Matterport tours, I think, ties into that. But having a nice, well-done floor plan makes a big difference, right? What else? the biggest seller of luxury properties? What do you think that is?
Experience.
She said experience, no? What's the biggest seller or marketing tool for luxury properties?
You.
Successful. What, did I hear it?
Videos.
Videos, but videos at a new level, right? So here's where, and if you look to like the California market, we've been talking about this for a long time around here, and I've seen it on a couple of really great listings around here, what I would call and what's typically termed lifestyle videos of the property. Lifestyle videos. You know, you take it up a notch. It's not just a video or a blank video of the house, which you can do. We got that great Videolicious with all the branding on it. You know, you can shoot a great video without spending a lot of money, or you can hire, we do have a couple videographers you can hire to help put something together. You want to make sure it's something that flows and maybe has you featured in it a little bit. Like that would be nice to market yourself a little bit as well. But a true lifestyle video, if you look them up, they can be kind of fun. People play with sort of what it looks like to live in the house. There's an agent out there that I found at one point. I tried to find it this morning. I couldn't find it. He actually gets a very high-end car from a local car dealer who he promotes in the video. So he leases, you know, he borrows his car for the day. He pulls up in the fancy circular driveway in the fancy car. He comes in, you know, him and the wife are having a glass of wine in the gorgeous kitchen. Then they're going to sit out on the deck with their friends and have a party, you know, a little evening cookout type of thing. So they showcase the whole patio deck area and how that could be used, right? So something that actually shows the functionality and the fun of the house can gain a lot of traction. And it's always something, I mean, you can have a lot of fun with it. You don't necessarily have to hire people to do that either. You know, I'm sure we could get enough people in the office to throw a party and dress up and look the part. But think about that. That's a little outside the box, isn't it? That's not something that the other agent sitting across from them is going to talk about. And yet that can be a real social media, online, viral kind of tool to drive activity to their property. I mean, honestly, if I had Tom Brady's listing, I would have done that. Right?
I think Tom Brady alone says enough.
Huh?
I think what Tom Brady alone says enough. Tom and
Yeah,
Giselle.
I don't know how the showings are going. You never know. But
It's
again,
flyers, that's what we're
and
writing.
wait, there you go. There you go. Who's going to get that expired listing, right? All right. So again, you have to sort of prep yourself with these materials and get the samples together, like Maura has with the virtual staging and stuff, so that you have the materials to go in with. That's really what this is all about today. Is really prepping you so that you're prepared to go in and have a good conversation, but have the right materials and actually take advantage. The company has a lot from the luxury side, more than you're going to see anywhere else. And so if you're not taking advantage of that, you're only hurting yourself when you're going out on listing presentations, right? So what else are we missing?
Listening to some of the videos last night, they were saying you got to dress properly. So
Yeah.
is that a big part, you think?
So yes, yeah, you know. So what do you think? What do you think? Are you gonna pull up into a $2.5 million house with a pair of jeans on? I mean, again, there's certain markets where that would be appropriate with the right blazer and stuff. But again, you always want to dress the part, right? You I don't know who the quote's from, but it's like you can never overdress. It's always better to be overdressed than underdressed and show up, right? And always better to look the part of someone that's going to handle the property. I know back in the day when I was a new agent and I had a big opportunity, I actually went and rented a car for a day because I didn't want to show up in my car to the appointment, right? So, I mean, you laugh at that, but it's the little things that can be, I would love to think that people don't judge us by what we're showing up in and showing up with, and our materials are going to speak for themselves, but it is a whole package. And there are first impressions that are made, right? And people make assumptions. What else?
On that note, there's also lifestyle. I agree with everything, and I get that. And I'm also noticed I got a new car recently. Because I kind of had to. Thought my Audi looked great at 12 years old. But anyway, I can see the difference. Why people are like, oh, wow, you must be doing well. And I'm like,
I know.
okay. But, for example, Mary Crane in our Needham office, because I do a lot of stuff in Sherburne.
Yeah.
I mean, she could go in dressed in her riding boots but then she's
Right.
part of
And
the lifestyle.
But that's her market, right? So
Exactly,
that's why I
that is-
said,
she is part
that's
of
why I
the
said it
lifestyle.
depends on the market and what you're, in your relationship, how well you know the person.
Right.
I mean,
And
and
how you're known
really
in the
what,
community.
yeah, she's going into high-end horse properties and that's who she is. That's how she's showing up, right? Yeah, absolutely. What else? What are we missing? What else could be added in there? So the tiered marketing pieces, right? So what's happening in the offices, it's already here. I'm not gonna speak to other offices yet because it's in works, although it should be getting close. There are luxury folders that have been ordered in all the offices. I don't know if this is company compliant yet, so I probably shouldn't put this on video. I think most of the offices, you're gonna see the white luxury folder. I actually went with the Cabernet because of the Cabernet covers on this Toolkit CMA. I like that they match. These will be used to put like the appropriate tiered marketing program, the tiered sheets, some of the luxury stuff that we've just talked about. Those are all the marketing plan piece. Those are all provided and ready to go to sort of grab and go with Nicole. So based on the tier, whether it's a sapphire, a ruby, or a diamond, again, you'll tell her the property so we can get it to the brand manager, but then she'll give you the appropriate folder to go with that. Okay? I would suggest on your own that you have, I mean, they also have things like this in there, the sample materials that are added in, and the sample postcards are in there, okay? And at the higher ends, this book is in there. I would suggest if you want it, and there's plenty of them floating around between my office and corporate, we can grab them for you, to have a collection of the books anyway for yourself to, just from a present standpoint, but that's up to you. They can be a little heavy. They can be a little heavy in the book. So let's talk about the different tiered marketing programs. So the lowest is the sapphire, right? $1 million to $1.5 million. 1 to 1.5 million. Syndication, property flyers, direct mailers, property video, property e-blast, professional staging or consultation, professional photography, social media. Sort of the basics, and actually, honestly, in a lot of our market, these are the basics anyway, aren't they? Right? But
So-
highlighting, yep,
No, it's just, so you mention all those things.
yes.
What do you mean by that the company will pay for those?
So not everything. So that's the piece that we want to refer to the collateral material. So like the photography at that level, you're paying for that. There are different levels. It depends on what the items are. Like obviously the brochures are being done. Any property over $1 million that warrants sending brochures out, we're handling that to make sure that they look nice. The upgraded copies, the stuff that's coming off the upgraded copiers, with the upgraded paper that we bought is fabulous. Right now, the only issue we're working out here, and I think all the offices are looking into this, so we're doing it through corporate, is on the, I don't have an example one here, it's a little bit on the bleed pieces on the brochures, just it doesn't bleed all the way to the end, and we know we can do that. So that's gonna be set up to do that as well.
We're getting that on $400,000 list. I mean, we have.
Nice, oh yeah, well, those are the regular, those aren't gonna have the luxury piece on it, but you're gonna get the nice brochures.
We are
Correct.
getting, yeah.
Correct,
So it's almost 0 to.
Right, that's the low end of the office now, in terms of what's coming up, which is what should be out there. We don't wanna see, other paper stuff. I mean, I went to one house and it had somebody printed out of their own machine. Really, there's no need to do that.
No.
Well, because I mean, again, there's a brand piece behind this that's a real asset for you. So utilize that. I mean, utilize that, but we also want to maintain the integrity of that in the marketplace.
Right, the
Yeah.
consistent branding level.
Yep. So the piece, this piece with the little band across the top, it's a 2-page. This is for you to look at, but this outlines, and this is in the library, by the way, in the Common Moves library. And if you didn't get materials, you want to come and grab them, that's fine. This outlines the seller benefits to the tiered marketing, what all the different pieces are. The big pieces that I want you to make sure you understand and sort of wrap your arms around or study are the syndication pieces. Everybody talks about property syndication, meaning it goes into the system and it gets syndicated out, right? But where we syndicate from Berkshire Hathaway is unique and above a lot of what you're seeing in the marketplace. Specifically, Juat, right? Timothy can speak to that, how important that can be. Sometimes that's behind the wall. And that's not something that everybody has access to with syndication. The Mansion Global, Wall Street Journal, which includes Europe and Asia, the Financial Times, and then, there's the Trulia, the Zillows, the ones that you would expect to see. But the Wall Street Journal piece, the July piece, know what those are. Use some of that collateral material in the Toolkit CMA and make sure that you bring that up as part of the presentation. Because what do we want to do in a presentation? What's the biggest piece we need to make sure they understand when we leave?
Marketing.
Yeah, stand out. How am I different, right? How am I going to market and sell your property? How am I different? How is the company different? How's that marketing going to be different? How do we really ensure the successful sale of your property? What does that package look like? Okay? This talks about the Videolicious. We've been through a lot of this stuff. If you flip that over to the other side, the mobile and online ad campaign, that ties into the AdWorks piece. And, understanding that with the AdWorks, there are a lot of agents, and again, I don't know that a lot of people understand the difference in this, but if you look at this in terms of where the AdWorks goes, some folks will talk about like Facebook ads or Google ads, or we'll run a Facebook ad on your property. But where's that going to go? That only goes to Facebook, right? AdWorks has a much wider reach on the internet in terms of getting exposure for that house. So you're going to be able to take that listing, put that seller in that campaign, and they'll, if they go to the Wall Street Journal or they're out looking at the New York Times site, their house is going to be popping up. That speaks a lot to getting that exposure, and again, just driving more traffic.
Is AdWorks still the 1 week?
AdWorks is 1 week paid for by the company. Yep, and then it's $50 a week after. Yeah. And again, that's something, obviously you don't want to necessarily promise stuff, but just tell them they're getting the exposure. And then for yourself, you can time that. Sometimes people do a week, then they rest it for a week, or they feel like there's another high traffic week coming, so they'll put it back out there and spend a little money to get those analytics. If you don't have sample analytics of your own, speak to somebody like Maura or Benna or somebody just to print out, or we can get a couple from you anyway and include them in the folders for some properties that have been out there. That's helpful to have that. Okay? The custom property website jumps in at the diamond level, right? Let's jump up to the diamond piece. Well, actually, I could do the additions. You're jumping up to the diamond piece, the big pieces that I want to make sure you, and I didn't give you the tier sheets for all these, but we keep these, and again, these are in the folders, they're in the library, so you can print these out easy if you want to just have them for your own reference to take a look at. Some of the big differences, catered broker preview, that is actually paid for by the company. There's a custom property website done up at the Berkshire Hathaway level, Twilight open houses. When you look at the tiered marketing piece on the diamond, and this is, again, if you have never looked at this, it actually, so anything over 4 million and up gets put in the DuPont registry. So 4 million and up adds DuPont registry. But when you look at the tiered marketing pieces that you take into the clients, the collateral pieces, it actually shows you circulation and exposure. So like BHHS Prestige Magazine, 20,000 circulation. It's a 287K average household income that's targeted. You get into unique homes, it's a 331K average household income that's targeted. Boston Magazine is 221, and then DuPont is 315K and up. So that information's on there so that we can address with the clients, not only are we putting you in, exposing your property strongly online with the materials that we're developing, but you're also going to get, in magazines that are targeted towards the target market that potentially would buy your property.
Which piece is that you were reading from? I didn't see that one up there.
So these are, so I didn't put these up there because these are in the library, and these are the tiered marketing pieces, yep. And so when you grab a folder based on your level, you'll have the appropriate, she'll give you the appropriate tier sheet. You should never be walking in with all 3 tier sheets. Are we clear about that? I know that seems basic, but you'd be surprised how many people have done that. Throw them all in there and then just pull out the appropriate one. You should have that folder unique for the client. And these folders that we give you are intended to leave with the client. They are intended to leave with the client. Going after the luxury FISBO, right? Questions on that? Questions on the specs? There's a lot of information in the library on the tiered marketing program. This piece is a seller piece. the seller benefits, but again, be careful how you're utilizing this. This is more for your information so that you can relay the message to the seller based on what level they're at. What other things are important in the luxury world? We've covered a lot, right? Because that's a lot of pieces. What else can you do to stand out and be different? Well, it points you to the presentation itself and the conversation that you're going to have with the client when you show up. On that train, or on that track, if you will, if you have not seen Alan Dalton's presentation stuff, which I think now is in the Berkshire Hathaway resource piece, right? We had him come here. We were fortunate enough to have him come here and present to the company, and I did record that. But I think he's done a more formal presentation out on the Berkshire Hathaway resource site that you can go take a look at. He does an amazing job of setting up the conversation with the client, which really works at luxury or any listing presentation, but I think it's extremely effective at the luxury level. And from the high level, the conversation starts with, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, where would you like to start? With the pricing strategy or with our marketing strategy to get your home sold? Because really, that becomes the two most important things to those sellers. I'll share it. I'm going to put it out on my social media page. I found something this morning, or you can find this on YouTube. If you look it's under Tom Ferry interviews Alan Dalton. I think he just did it, like within the last week or so, because it just came out that I saw. Tom Ferry interviews Alan Dalton. And he talks about, really approaching the listing presentation differently, that as an industry, what we're doing wrong and how everybody's going in the same and how to differentiate yourself. It is very strong. It's a very strong message and a very strong tool to just change up the approach we have with the sellers and how to really differentiate yourself as that consultant forever person when you walk in the door with them. It's amazing. So that should be on your list of things to do. Who's actually had done a luxury listing presentation recently, or even a strong listing presentation? Maura?
It didn't end well, so I don't know.
It's okay. You've had a lot that have ended well.
Yeah, but she ended it like that. She looked me up, and I didn't have 3.5 million listings in my background, but she was torn anyway because the other woman didn't have the presentation I had, but she had 15 in her town. But she was still torn. So I'm like, all right, next one. But I went to you and got the date of magazine, and I had, all these things that you were saying. I had in my pocket, like the house was empty, they moved away, it had already expired. And I kept saying to her, well, how did that work for you last time when you had somebody with, $15 sales? They're not as eager. But it does help having the virtual staging, having, the Berkshire Hathaway name and the background and showing them like the HY website, but it just almost, you have to show confidence and, your appearance and everything, show that you've got this and that you're going to do whatever it takes above and beyond somebody else.
So what can you, and that's a good example to bring up because it is what happens, right? It happens to a lot of us. What can you arm yourself with if you're walking into an opportunity like that where they might call you to the carpet because you haven't done that big of a listing? I mean, obviously all this material helps, right?
I'm calling someone who asked that, but then you did something.
So you can always call somebody with you. Yeah, you could go in as a team. What else could you do?
Use the office's experience.
Yeah, use the companies. Use the company's experience, right? Do some, do a little digging online first before you go in. Like, well, what have we had as a company, like a Mary Crane and some of the other folks within the company? What have we had in that area or in that price point or whatever you think the concern might be, right? Again, what Moore did is try to differentiate herself from the tools, which you can do that. And a lot of times, if this doesn't work, who's the next person she's going to call? She's gonna call more, right? I mean, I know when you're new, it's hard, and I had people when I was new say, well, you've never done that before. It's like, well, like Maura said, I'm gonna give you 150% because you're a little fish in my, you're a big fish in my little pond. Or do you want to be a little fish in their big pond because they've got 5 listings? Sometimes being armed with the stats too. I mean, if you're going in, and again, you don't ever want to personally point to a person or slam a person's reputation, but if they come at you and say, well, Joe Schmo has 5 $3 million listings in town, and so we think we need to go with Joe Schmo. I might want to have in my back pocket Joe Schmo's track record. Joe Schmo sells, 90% to list price, so the average days on market for his properties is 180 when everything else is selling, or our company can do 30 to 60, whatever that is, whatever those stats are, having a couple of important points. So anticipating where you might have a hurdle is going to be important, right? Anticipating where those objections may come up can be important. And obviously, the further Maura gets into this, the more armed she is because she's had the opportunity. So sometimes it is just getting out there and starting to see what those anticipated issues are. Debbie.
Maura, what was your past business experience before you got into real estate?
Medical software sales.
Okay. You bring that into it, that you have a strong sales background. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that you sold $3, $5 million properties, but if you sold millions of dollars of medical equipment back in the day, sales is sales and marketing is marketing.
Right. And that's true. And I don't want to fight you because I tried that, but and this is what we can all think of is your objection. So she said, I love you. Your listing presentation was flawless. Like there's not even one typo. It was better than the 6 that I had. It's down to you and this other person now. And I think that you would be here and all that, but I already didn't sell my home once. I've left the state. I need to do this for my family. And this agent has 5 $3 million plus properties that she sold in the last 6 months and has her open house list and that she told me she'd bring them and the whole, so I said, I get that, but she hasn't sold those. And I'm going to, this will be my only.
I know the property you're talking about. You did a good job of
I said,
going back.
I'm going to be there. It's like one neck to choke if this doesn't work. It's not like a team of people.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to do your open house. You're going to have, Johnny, I saw the people who were coming and looking. There's like people who are 18 who are going to be doing your open houses. And, it's not going to be that person. But she just said, my gut says to go with you, but the track record of this other woman.
Did that go into contract?
It did at $250,000 less than she listed it for. I know I followed that daily. So, I didn't push her too much on price because she was already doing that. What helped me get in there was she wanted to go with the people who had expired it. And I said, can I just ask you, what have they done other than drop it $600,000 in the last 9 months? What have they done above and beyond for you? So that got me in because she couldn't answer it. So she did switch from them because she liked them. There was nothing to not like, but there was nothing to love. It's easier to doubly know versus doubly know. But
and they tried to maintain the listing because of the photos they'd taken because they had possession of the photos, right? Wasn't that the?
Yes, and so when I started asking her about it, I didn't hear back that their photos were wiped from MLS. So so it's tricky, and I see her point too. So I'm trying to figure out how to combat that. When I get the next one, because that woman is pretty aggressive in her marketing. That I have all these people and I bring them from one if it doesn't work here, but the next one and the whole thing. But she gets the listing and then has the newbie from the open house. They're not the one actually selling the home, and eventually they sell. But it takes a really long time.
So that's the piece we have to start to look at some of the stats. So how many price drops, how many days have things been on market?
Right.
What does she mean by bring her team to sell?
Well,
she might not even have a team.
Other clients
but
she's talking about.
She's got $3 million listings, all of an open house at 12 to 1. She's not doing it all.
You can downplay that. Just say she had to get someplace. It was an open house. You're gonna
have that.
Right, but so she's saying, I've got buyers already from my other open
Yeah.
houses that I'm gonna bring
That
to your
didn't
house
buy
if
this.
you
Which they
hire
didn't
me.
obviously buy that one because it didn't go into contract, but
Right.
that's the line,
But
you
that's
know,
their
that's
line,
the
that's what they
angle.
say,
Yeah.
and then they, and I'm like, oh, so then she's only gonna take the 2.5%, she's not, if she brings you the person, you know, like, she gonna.
Laura tried everything with that, she
You know,
was
so
good.
it just, it's, you know, it's just things to think of, you know,
And how did she look you up? What research?
No,
was
Maura
she
found
doing?
her.
to see my, I think you can go onto the Berkshire Hathaway website and see that your recent sold.
Because you can just go to your landing page, your
Yeah.
agent landing page.
Yeah.
Theoretically, it would be.
Done on this thing on Victoria.
It's not always
Right, I
up to
didn't
date,
hand it,
but
I
Right,
didn't
it's
hand
not,
it to her,
it's not,
but
and again,
it's-
so, I mean, that's a piece where, you know, you do have, she has Maura has a ton of volume, but even if you don't have a ton of volume, beyond the company stuff. This is what we've sold in town, this is what we've sold over the price point, right, and again,
We tried that. you
we
know?
tried some, yeah, there's just not a lot, there's not a lot of data at that
And-
price
and-
point
and
in
she wanted
this
in-
town.
She wanted in Brookline,
Right,
you know,
and, yeah.
higher than 3 million,
Yeah.
particularly with me,
Mhm.
you know, so I get that to some degree. And if she had asked me point blank, I wouldn't have lied anyway. I have
Right.
numerous luxury listings, but not,
Right.
you know.
Always better to tell the truth.
Yeah, will you still keep in touch with her?
So she even said, I expect to buy again in Boston, and I've kept your name because you're the one that I would want, you're the one I trust the most. This is kind of painful, you know.
Mhm.
and that I
It was a
would-
tough one for her to not, yeah.
Yeah,
It was like almost every single reason except, you know, which
Yeah.
didn't even make sense. The woman even couldn't
Yeah,
justify
and my,
it.
you know, and her husband's got like a big, he's a doctor in Boston, and I, you know, did 6 degrees of separation and found a friend of her husband's, and, you know, my daughter wants to go to med school, and she wants her to go to the med school down in Texas, which, I mean, like, it was a strong bond, and I didn't get it, and I kicked myself. Why? But I think sometimes you just,
Yeah,
you just
can't
have
get
to
the
learn
bond.
from the next time. I learned a ton about the luxury. I still don't know all that I can about the luxury, which is why I'm here. And then I think the next one, maybe I had some bit of insecurity that came out that I wasn't aware of that won't be there next time because I'm more, you know, angry and will bring that confidence to the next one. But
That's not the right
they're
word.
good.
More educated. You're more
They're
educated.
But they're good. I feel like they're good, you know, objections for everybody to hear.
Well, and at some point, everybody gets their first $3 million listing, right? I mean, this is not like, you know, nobody walks in with 10 sales in their pocket, just like no new doctor sits at the table and you learn somehow. But
how long was it on the market after? How long did it
I
take?
think about 3 months. But it was the second time
That
on
was
the
the second
market
time it
and
came on.
another $250,000 price drop.
How much time between the expired listing and it going back? Did they do the 60 days? So they didn't have the days on the
They did. Yeah, so came on due again, but
60 or 90?
90.
90.
90
Is it
days.
60 on the Cape?
I think it's always been 90. It's always
It's
been
60
90.
on one or the other MLS. Is it Cape?
It's 90 days on
It doesn't
MLS.
switch if you go to different companies? Does
No,
it start
no.
over? Oh, it
No,
doesn't?
no,
No.
it follows the property.
No.
It follows the property, 90 days. Because that doesn't matter if you relist with another company, it's still got the timeline. Good. What else can we do to differentiate ourselves? So what do you think makes you different? Now, these are big questions to think about, right? I mean, Kelly, you walked in and grabbed a few luxury properties right out of the gate, right?
Yeah, I think for me it was just like I was always honest with him, like from the beginning. We talked about so many different things besides houses, you know. I mean, I really made it sure that we had a genuine connection. It's like authentic, and I think that's why he went with me, even though he knew I had absolutely no experience. I mean, he was an moron. He obviously looked up, you know, how many listings I've had, but he knew I was smart.
Which is
He
how
could
many?
tell, which was 0.
Yes.
You know? And he actually asked me, you know, when I went in to sign the papers that night, he said, all right, Cal, how many current listings do you have? And I said, none. And he said, how many have you sold? I said, none. And he's like, yeah, I thought so. And he's like, all right, I like you. I want to work with you. And that was it. And like, you know, I just feel like if you're persistent and you're authentic, like everything is more listening yesterday.
That woman was right on she was at the 99.9% of going with you,
Yeah.
right? It was just
And
that
she's
little
gonna
piece.
go with you next time. I know it.
Yeah.
You know, because of that.
I'm just gonna get licensed in Texas.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's a huge point, it's like all my last stories, but I did lose one way back when, because he said, you know what, you're just too qualified, you're not gonna give me, and it was another agent that I know, that walked in and said, look, I don't know what I'm doing, but I really want this listing, I've never had anything, I've never sold anything, but could I really have to, he's like, no, she's gonna give you more time, because everything you said, you've gotta be busy. So I was like, I did not just lose this listing. for
Over that, yeah.
But there was a point, like he knows you're gonna, at least you went in with a different, she said she was all disheveled, but she was telling me, I remember, I was so disheveled and I was sending jeans to the door, and like at least, you played the part.
Kinda sad, isn't it?
Fantastic service. Oh, she got the listing, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
But
that's
you don't have an experience, you gotta have it grit and sort of confidence and, I mean, really seriously, because you don't have the experience, right? I mean,
And of course, like I talk about all these things too. Like I've been trained very well by the best for the past 6 months. So it's like I had some good things to talk about.
Did you just get your license 6 months ago?
Yeah.
Good for you.
she's got 3 listings on the book.
It's kind of about the emotional intelligence and where we have to read the person.
Right.
And and you can apply this to all life. Super busy agents really don't have the time to attend to the person. And I learned that about horse vets, believe it or not. Everyone wants the rock star horse vet. And I had at the University of Georgia Vet School call me up once, consulted me and said, no, you don't. You don't want the person with the biggest caseload. You want the person who knows what they're doing, is going to care and have time for your horse. My point is, this applies to everything in life.
And have the right story, right? Have the story that applies to you. I mean,
and ask for the
Laura
business.
now has to address that she's busy and does still have time for them, right? So, I mean, at different stages, things shift a little bit. Things just shift a little
But
bit.
it's hard to
Right,
thread these
multitasking
needles.
right now.
About like the person who just goes and says, I don't have anything, help me out, I'll give you everything.
Well, I don't know if I would have
Okay,
personally taken that approach. I'm not
I
really
know,
a
but it
fan of that kind
works.
of training, but I mean, that's kind of that's a crapshoot kind of approach. I'd like to go a little
Yeah.
more educated and a little
I
more,
agree, but
take it from that standpoint of, look, I'm well prepared and, my background, whatever it is you need
I
to bring
agree.
in.
But reading the person emotionally, I think.
Yes.
Certainly, yeah, definitely didn't do that. But you could tell I was hustling because I was just getting out of my car and approaching him. It was fantastic. It was one of those things. It was like he was like, geez, if she's gonna run around like this, like, well, what is she gonna do when she gets a lead?
Right?
It was kind of like that. But
Yeah.
People have to trust you. People have to
People have
trust
to
you
trust you,
too. I
yeah.
mean, there's a lot of this business comes down to that relationship and connecting with people. You've heard both of them talk about sort of personal connecting with people on other levels. And, sometimes that plays a bigger factor than we give it credit for. So let's cycle back now that we've talked about all the pieces. What are you going to do to prepare for an opportunity? What do you need to do to prepare for an opportunity? Let's highlight that or run back through it. What are the steps? Somebody just picked up the phone and called you, and you now have a $2 million opportunity in Newton in an area where that's top 10% of the market.
Yeah, the marketing materials.
So how are we going to do that?
I would talk to Nicole
Yeah.
first.
So I'm going to take a step back from that even and say, drive by the house, get a photo, just try to get something to work with. Ideally, get a decent enough photo you can use into your marketing materials, which would be nice to show them sort of a start. But if you don't have the opportunity to do that because you don't want to stock the house with his kids out front or something, at least get a front-facing, straight-on photo. Any of the luxury publication materials, that's an important piece actually we haven't talked about. You need at least one straight-on front-facing photo. All the publications, we're not going to put different angles and things in the publications. The ads have to look a certain way.
The first step I would actually do, though, is go on MLS and
Yep.
look for past history.
Yeah,
Because you can usually get a lot of photos and information.
I can get
just go
pictures
back-
that way
Go
potentially, yeah.
back like 6 years or whatever.
You can't use those now.
No, but you can find out.
Well, you could use that for the brand manager. You couldn't use it,
Oh, okay.
not,
Okay.
you couldn't publish it into MLS, but you could use it for your own internal pieces, yeah. Or you could actually even potentially put in the
Plus
marketing,
all
but
the
you
other
be careful.
information about how big it is on your own.
Yeah,
use.
Yeah, obviously we've got to do the research, right? We've got to find out the history of the house. Get a photo of the house that you can utilize or something. You ideally had an awesome conversation with them before you even start to pull this together. So you've been able to really ask them a lot of questions. How long they've been in the house? Why are they moving? What kind of improvements have they made to the house? What is their thought in terms of timing for selling, so that you go in armed with the appropriate data, right? Also, are you the only agent coming in, or are they bringing other people in? right? That's important to know those pieces. So I got this $2 million listing. I'm gonna start to do my research. What else? Gonna grab my material, right? I'm gonna start to grab my material. For those of you that haven't done it, and I suspect a lot of you in the room don't have this, you need to start to put together some sort of, I'll call it a presentation book for yourself. I think Maura has something similar to this. This is similar to what I used in the field for a long time, with some of, you know, the virtual staging samples. Maybe some of these types of samples generic in there, even though you're gonna leave some of them. So something that you can flip and talk to, okay?
Not that you leave with them, but that you.
Well, you're gonna have the folder that you leave with them that has some of the stuff in it. So then that's fine to leave with them if they want it. Sometimes they don't care. But by all means, it should be spread out on the table.
Right.
You know,
Your
it should be.
presentation book could be something. You
Yeah,
can show them as
yeah.
a demonstration.
And, you know, ideally, you know, maybe it's some of the, you know, like is here, what we've done, where'd it go? You know, we've taken some of the luxury properties we had and made a little more generic brochure just so it can be utilized, you know. So maybe a couple of samples of recent listings within the company or the office, whatever makes the most sense based on the market and the price point that you can utilize. So you're talking about real life examples, right? Maybe gather some stats on that high-end market too. Make sure you're really educated on that market in terms of timing. How long does it take for those properties to sell? How, you know, what is the average days on market? What, you know, what does that turnaround look like? As a company, where do we fall for that? So that you have that ammunition against those objections. Right? What else might you do?
I have my talking points, just so everything's like all organized. Like I know the conversation can flow in
Yeah.
different directions. That's what I had. So I talked about this first and this.
So give me an example of what you meant. Like what?
I'm trying to think. It wasn't this presentation,
Okay.
but it was the listing I did for FISBO in July. I didn't want to throw everything all in that at once, so I basically just said, you know, there's 2 pieces to marketing, price and promotion. I said, what piece do you want to talk about first? And then, you know, we kind of went from there, and then I just started pulling up some of the samples.
So, and what that kind of plays into, which I like that she's talking about, is being organized, like having a plan, right? I mean, a lot of times we think, oh, I got the price, I've got the thing, but honestly, listing presentations, I mean, they should be conversations, there should be a lot of questions in there, but you should have a plan, because you might not have a lot of time. You know, you go in against someone that's like a high D or a very fast kind of personality, you know, you're lucky if you get an hour, right? So you need to be, you sort of, and again, talking points, or sometimes just, I mean, I always do this when even I'm teaching, just a little outline, make sure I hit the important points, right? And I make sure it's something I can just reference to, so that if I get caught up in the conversation, we don't forget to talk about those things. Right? So that's a good piece. Sort of organizing your thoughts. If you haven't done it, and a lot of people don't, but I think it's important, practice. You know, practice the listing presentation. Get on Debbie or my calendar, or a fellow agent, and say, look, let's prep this property, and sit down and actually walk through like I came into your house and I'm doing a listing presentation. Because I mean, if you've never done a luxury and you've got this big opportunity, do you want your practice to be in front of them? Because that's what it's going to be if you haven't done it before, right? And I know that's hard. A lot of people are like, I don't want to run through. I don't want to. No, seriously, it's a hard thing to do. But it is something I did actually when I was new. I actually called 3 friends and said, I'm going to do a market analysis for your house and do a marketing presentation for you, and I'll give you a gift card for your time. Would that be okay? Now, one of those people ended up selling with me, so that was an added bonus. I actually hadn't thought about that. But it was a way for me to get into the house and get in front of people, and it was even harder because I knew them like that. So I really felt like I had to be prepared, right? So I was crazy prepared, but that really set a good tone for going into listing presentations with people I didn't know.
One of the videos that Alan Dalton has done, he talks about not calling it a listing presentation when you work with a client. It's the listing process. Basically, you're coming in as though the listing is yours, and you are walking them through the process of what's going to happen.
I love that.
So
It's an assumptive close coming in. This is my listing. These are the things I'm going to do to get you sold, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that is a very strong approach.
If you're using that approach, and you also know they're going to talk to 2 other people or 5, how do you fit that in so that you're, if you say, are you talking to other people? You're not.
So
also
typically,
making an assumption.
yeah, so again, you might know they have other people coming in, but that doesn't change the way you would approach that listing presentation. I mean, I still, even though I asked the question, I still always want to go in first.
You do first.
I like to go first, but that's up to personal preference. But a lot of times when I was first, they never got an opportunity to get in the door. So that's why I didn't like to go at the end. I think I lost one or two going in at the end and said, I don't like this approach because I'm not even getting a chance. So I would go in first. And again, you can still make that assumptive close. So when I list the house, this is the schedule. This is how we would do that. Oh, we actually didn't even talk about the other pieces that I gave you, the marketing, the media plan. Very few people. I gave you both the Berkshire Hathaway National and the Commonwealth media plan. That's a big piece that should be. That's a big piece that should be in your materials because we talk about the publications and stuff, but we actually have a media plan. We actually have a brand manager in the company that's ensuring the proper exposure and timing for your property to get it out there, right? So really talking about their home with a schedule. These are the things we will do. These are the steps we will take. This is the timeline that we can do that on. How do we know the timeline? Because you came to us first and we could say, hey, look, if you can get this listed and a photographer in there by October 15th, then we can get you in a Boston magazine, right? That's pretty powerful when you're sitting across from somebody, because if you don't give them a lot of time to think about that and they're going to miss a magazine, that's going to get them into action faster. Here's another little tip, and it can get difficult. It's a little easier in the luxury market, and it's, if you have a good relationship with someone, you call someone, and I used to actually book the photography and tour consults. So when I did the listing presentation, and this goes into sort of the assumptive close, I've always been sort of an assumptive closer, but I would say to them, so I've actually booked the professional photographer to come in, 2 days from now at 12 o'clock. Will that work for your schedule? You'd be surprised how many people are like, yeah, actually I could make that work. Next thing you know, the contract's going in front of them. They're not worried about the other agents coming in. Because I've already got a plan and I'm already executing for them.
And you made it really easy.
And I made it easy, which we all have to make it easy for them. If you don't make it easy for them, they can't see the path to success, right? And I don't think we value and
No vision again.
there's no vision, and I don't think we value how hard some things are for people, right? So that, I'm trying to deal with something myself right now, and I keep hitting all these hurdles. And if somebody would just swoop in and make this easy, I would move to the next step, right? That happens with everything, and it happens a lot with getting a house on the market. People are busy working, they've got kids, looking around and recognizing that maybe the fact that I have a cleaning lady I can bring in 2 days before the photographer shows up and we can help organize, that could be a game changer. That could be the difference between somebody signing the contract or not, because they can't figure out how they're going to find the time to do that unless it's 1 o'clock in the morning, right? Yeah, it's a good point. You have to differentiate yourself, and you have to be the action taker. You have to be the doer, the executor. Other thoughts, questions? I see the brains churning like, I know it's a lot of stuff, right? But the purpose of today is to already get you working on the materials, have that, I call it my go bag for recruiting, and I used to have a go bag for listings that was in the car that had, the magazines and had the stuff in it. So all I needed was the toolkit CMA for that client and the marketing folder for that client, like that, and everything else was already in there. Or whether that's a presentation book, whatever that looks like for you. It takes a little time to pull some of this together and also get your arms and head wrapped around some of these concepts and practice a little bit. This is intended to get you ready for these listing opportunities. So 2 things happen. 1, we're not afraid to make the phone calls to the FSBOs or the expireds that are over the $1 million mark because we don't think we can do them. And she's shaking her head over there. Yeah, right. Yeah, so I hear that a lot. People come to me. I just interviewed a new agent that came in and said, oh, well, I wouldn't go for the luxury pieces right out of the bat. I said, I don't know why not. Kelly just signed a few new listings. Amy Volk's first deals, Renata's first deals. They're all, what's the difference? Why not? Why not, right? I think your average price point, your first year was $1 million.
My first listing was 1.5.
1.5, yeah.
My first sale was 1.7.
Yeah.
Especially because you're going to treat that client the same as you have a
Right.
$20,000 client or a $5 million client. You're going handle it the same.
Right.
Right, well, I was.
Same time.
So it's like you might as well just add like that number's not.
I said, I have the time to help you, and the motivation, and in my back pocket, I have someone who's been here, and was 17 years, who's guiding me from the background. I said, she can't be here every day to do all these little nitty gritty things that you can, but guess what, I'm gonna help stage your house, I'm gonna, help clean this kitchen, get it going right there, I'm gonna be the photographer, I'm gonna be with every person in this house, and anytime I have a question, I'm gonna just go to the person who's in the background doing a zillion things, but can tell me everything I can do. So I would use Paula and Debbie if you don't have experience.
And it's very easy. Some of you sitting there go, well, I don't have the listing. I don't have the materials. You can pull that together. We can reach out to Carrie Howell and say, hey, send us some of those twilight shots. Send us so we can put this in some of the materials. I mean, I'm sure Melissa's happy to do that. And share some of that stuff, or a sample Matterport tour, or the sample staging stuff. We can get that from Catherine, and you can get a copy for more. There's all that stuff's out there. Kelly's got good examples of that now with your luxury property. So there's plenty of that out there that you can put in your toolbox, even though you don't have it yourself. We have it as a company.
Put
Good.
together a portfolio, and that's what you call it. It is your portfolio of work. It doesn't have to always be your work, it can be the office's work, but you've got
And the company's
product to show. Yeah.
Okay, so the last item is if you want to, and again, I wouldn't jump into this yet for all of you, but there's some that this might apply to. If you go to Berkshire Hathaway Resources, at the luxury level, there is luxury training options available. So Berkshire Hathaway Resources, under luxury training, there's a luxury live, a luxury online, and advanced online that gets you into or closer towards the luxury certification, which is it's a certified luxury home marketing specialist. It's a CLHMS designation. CLHMS, it's called. There's a cost to each of these. They range from $349 to $495. But if this is something where again, for some of you, it's because you're new, you don't have the experience, but you could have the designation. It depends on how you want to utilize that. And that just goes through, it's different levels of training. One of them's 13 modules, 4 hours, one of them's 15 modules, 8 hours. And then there's, there's membership requirements and stuff. So there's a whole component that goes into that. But again, if you need that little added boost of confidence, that's not a bad thing to look into. The other thing that always is not a bad education is start to look at some of the stuff that's out there. Google Tom Brady's house and take a look at how the property is being marketed. It doesn't say that's the right way to do it, because actually I'm not that impressed. But it gives you ideas, and sometimes you will come across something like those lifestyle videos or some of those other options. And we've got the toolbox of videographers, photographers, stagers, virtual stagers. You don't have to spend a ton of money doing that stuff. Good? You feel better armed? Good information?
Yeah.
A little overwhelmed? Yep. No. Listen, I'm glad you took the time. Any questions, let me know. I did give you a couple of extra pieces. This is, I think, who just said this? Kelly, you said this piece. I love this piece.
Yeah,
The
that's
Fortune's
awesome.
10 most admired companies in the world. Don't forget that you are behind you are in front of a very strong brand. The Berkshire Hathaway Home Services brand is getting a lot of attention and a lot of traction, and the whole Warren Buffett connection, people immediately go there when you throw the name out. But the materials are very strong, the brand's very strong. Our leverage in the marketplace, the positioning in the marketplace is very strong. Make sure you're utilizing all that as well when you show up at the table. Yeah.
That's another one I just thought of, in the marketing resource, when you can do the e-card and the e-flyers, those are nice because you can send it to if you don't have a good database yet, it's a good resource to get your database going. But they like that when they see that. And
You're talking about like an announcement of the
just
property.
like Michelle Blake sent one yesterday and had like the announcement, but you can do the luxury ones, and you can just, start saying that I'll be doing that regularly, and you can link video to that. I'll be doing one Friday for Orlando and Nina, should anybody be reading, but you can at least, if you get it, if you look at it and it says like click here for the video link, it may or may not help, but it helps them if you can say like, oh, I have a large database and I'll be sending this out to all the Berkshire Hathaway offices. and mind them regularly, not just, you know.
So you could actually, you could actually also reverse search that on MLS for buyers that are out there.
Yeah,
That would be a good objection handler to, you know, well, this person says they have the buyers. Well, the reality is those buyers are all online, and we do a reverse marketing to all those buyers, and we'll send them that video. Do that too. That's even a bigger reach. Good. Yeah. So don't forget about all the e-cards, digital marketing pieces in the you know, in the library. It's very strong on the luxury pieces, and the tools and everything that you have in your pocket. I wish I had these when I was selling, because they're very strong. A lot of this stuff we had to create from scratch. So you've got a lot in the pocket, and if you decide you want to, you know, this is the next step in. You can sell, you know, $5 million houses or $500,000 houses, and pretty much make the same money, right? But put double the time in on the $500,000 houses. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because this is truly a luxury brand. This is truly a luxury brand.
It doesn't really cost you anymore to market a $1 million house.
No, it doesn't actually. With all the company sponsored pieces too, you really actually have a lot more in your tool belt than another agent can offer, because, you know, this ad alone, you're talking about like $2,000 to $3,000. So there's not a lot of agents out there talking about these kind of publications, because that would come out of their own pocket.
I have one question on the list about staging.
Yes.
I'm comfortable just, you know, staging and helping kinds of that, but it says we'll bring in a professional stager.
Which level?
I think it says it on all.
The initial one, yeah, be careful how you position that, because again, that's done usually at the agent's side. It's called a consultation. It's called a consultation, where you bring somebody in to just kind of consult and determine what might be needed. Because again, a lot of time with extensive staging, that's going to go back to the seller's pocket, potentially, depending on what level that's going to get done in.
Right. And I don't, but I'm just saying, are agents supposed to pay out of their pocket for a stager to go in and consult? I mean, I thought that's what.
That's an agent responsibility, but there's a lot of folks in the company too that will do that for you without any expense.
Right.
You know,
and
in
there's
terms of
some agents who
putting
are
a
more
plan together.
comfortable doing it themselves.
Yeah, there are some agents that will handle it themselves as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Usually what, you know, the way you could position it is, I've got a specialist I bring in, we'll take a quick walk through the house, and they'll put a proposal together for what makes the most sense to put the best face on the property.
Right. And then you expect, if you do extensive staging, I guess it depends on the client, whether they pay for it for you.
Yeah, typically any kind of full staging, you're talking about $3,000 to $5,000 easy on, and that, you know, you're talking about, I'm not talking about on the high-end home, so you would want to be careful not to commit to paying for that, because you could be talking a very heavy bill. By the time the furniture and the stager comes in, it can be expensive. Seller pays for it, yeah.
If you do it.
You could tell, I mean, that's like, so I'm specific, I offer like staging, which would mean like I can put in a couple chairs, I put plants around, you know, like, well, you use what they have and make it look better. So you're clear on that. If you have a vacant house and you want to bring stuff in, yeah, it's $thousands. You could say, you know, in the codes, we can get someone to come in to do that. That's why the virtual staging is $50 a room versus.
Yeah, that can be, well, that's what Kelly just did.
Make sure you're clear on what you're gonna do.
That's what Kelly just did, to build it in, you put the proposal together, to build it in, want to spend the money for that.
Go for it. It was pretty hefty to
Yeah.
get, you know. So I was like, you know what, I really believe in this, because both the houses are vacant. So I'm definitely gonna do the antique sides of the virtual staging for both the antique and the new construction. I probably didn't have to do it for the new construction, but I would anyways.
And you're getting good traffic.
Yeah.
You get the first room free still on that virtual staging?
I think
So
it
there is
depends on
someone else.
people, but
Well,
I
so,
just
no, there is something through the Berkshire Hathaway
Yeah.
Resource Center, right, that has
Yeah.
the virtual staging, and I think there's a room free.
And Mary Ann and some of the other wealthy agents.
Just
use
using
it a
that,
couple of
yeah.
times.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I used on Catherine. That's
Catherine cuts a deal if you're within the company
That's
usually too, so, but just talk to her about what you have.
Okay.
Yep.
Or, I mean, I would use my own stuff sometimes, like I brought like a banquet table and put an old tabletop on it. And
You've used office stuff too.
I've used other stuff.
These chairs are in a few photos.
I didn't want to offer that without policy.
No,
But
that's,
I've brought my own dining room chairs and all sorts of, like, you just kind of doing it. But you know, all suggested renting stuff. It'd be a good idea.
I've actually done that in the past. I've gone to Renter Center and said, I need to stage a house, you know, didn't have a lot of budget, said I need brand new furniture. So the guy said, sure, come on down to the store. We picked out some great modern furniture. It was like a couple $100 a month. And they actually deliver and pick it up, which was the bonus for me, because that's half the battle, is moving the stuff around. So that can sometimes be an option too. And actually, they've called since then. They're like, they love the idea of working with a real estate agent. Well, because it's, first of all, the furniture isn't touched. They're getting paid, you know, I think it cost me about $250, and I did like a living room, a kitchen table, and something in the bedroom. Wasn't a lot of stuff, but it was enough to just position. And I went down and picked out what I wanted. I obviously didn't want, and I said to them, I don't want stuff that's stained or, you know, other people's stuff. And they were fine with that. They were fine with that. And I kept it for like 3 months and told them to come pick it up. They came and picked it up. He's like, call us next time you need it. They love that.